so in this video we're going to take a look at configuring AAA on Cisco 9K switches. So we've got our topology here, and we've got a couple switches in our topology. We've got this one is switch 1, and this guy down here is switch 2. And basically so far we've just done like local authentication and used local auth. Now what we need to do is configure the switch so that we can use ISE as a database for AAA. And also we are going to configure it so that it basically can search the local accounts on the switch first and then go to ISE if it doesn't exist on the local user database. So AAA is a pretty big umbrella, guys. That's the thing about AAA, is that whenever we're talking about AAA, we're talking about a framework for authentication, authorization, and accounting. So what that really means whenever it comes down to routers and switches is who are we allowing to have access to manage the device, in which case in our labs we're going to be using TACACS for that, still ISE, but it's running the TACACS protocol. And then for Radius, for example, to authenticate devices connecting to the switch, okay, on the wired side, such as our access points. So even though we're really focusing on the wireless AAA, there's some discrepancies between how we do wired configurations and the IBNS model and wireless configurations. And I see people reusing certain elements of code because it's all iOS XE now, but they're reusing things that may not apply on the wireless side and vice versa, or they're taking their AAA policy from the wireless side and pasting it on their wired switches now. We want to have good templates for both of these purposes, and basically have a golden config of modern configurations, because AAA commands have evolved over the years. Okay, so back in the day we didn't have a concept called IBNS. That is relatively new. So that's the Identity-Based Network Service from Cisco, right? So, and we are now on IBNS v 2.0, and we use a C3PL markup language for that. So we have service policy, policy sets, and then we basically attach those, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start this off. I wanted to show you that I went ahead and on my ISE node, what we've done is, instead of adding these as network devices, I just configured a default device. Now, this is a lab, and that's why we're just keeping it simple. What that means is anybody that's got the Radius shared secret, right, can be an authenticator. Anybody that's got the TACACS shared secret can be an authenticator. But we'll probably build out some policies that require us to provide a little bit more about our network devices to get it to work right. Keep in mind, guys, that if you use, for example, if you're migrating from AirOS to iOS XE, and we'll talk about this again in the wireless side configuration, but remember that the 9800s run iOS XE, so the TACACS syntax is different from what it used to be with AirOS, okay? All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in on our switch here, and I've got my switch 1 configured, and so far we've got things like host names, IP addresses, we've got our SVIs, but if I do show run AAA, you're going to see no AAA new model exist. Okay, so we don't have AAA configured yet. All right, so we're going to need a few things to get this done. So we are configuring TACACS in this place. So the first thing we might need to do is do TACACS server, and actually we're going to follow the new syntax for this. So what I have done is I've got a template that we have. It's on our 9800 cut sheet template, but this is AAA for switches, and we're going to be basically following this guideline. So instead of using the TACACS-server command, we're going to do TACACS server, and we need to do AAA new. So TACACS server, there we go. All right, TAC1, and we're going to do address IPv4 10.1.10.21. And we're going to say key Cisco 123. Okay, So now we have a new TACACS server that is configured. Now we need a server group, and we're going to do AAA group, and we're going to say AAA group server, and this is, you can do this for TACACS or Radius or LDAP. So in our case, we're going to do this as TACACS Plus, and we're going to call this TAC. Okay, so I'm creating a new group to put our server in, and we're going to put our server name in there. Okay, and then of course that server needs to be the IP address of a ISE or AAA server that is running, the TACACS protocol, or it needs to be ISE in this case, and it needs to have the device admin service enabled. So if you're building your lab, okay, make sure the first thing you do with ISE is come in under your deployment, and it's in a standalone deployment by default, and make sure you enable this device admin role or service. Okay, so now this one node is taking care of Radius, the administration functions, the monitoring functions, everything. Eventually we'll probably do some PX grid on here. I mean, who knows? Who knows if we'll have enough time, right? Just kidding. All right, so we've got our server defined, and we've got our server added to a group called TAC. So now what we need to do is create something to log in. So we're going to do AAA, and if you look here, it basically says, what are we doing AAA for? Whoops. Login. Sorry, AAA authentication. Come on with the auth. Okay, so AAA authentication login, right? So login says set authentication list for logins to the device. So we're logging in to the device, right? Login authentication, and we're going to call it default authentication list. Okay, and what we're going to do is default local, meaning I want to use the local database first, but then if I don't find the user in the local user database, I'm going to go out and search this external server, and in our case it's going to be ISE and our group TAC we just created. So we're going to say group TAC. Okay, so I've created a new login group that's called default, and it's using the local user database, and then it goes out to the TACACS server we just defined. So we need authorization, right? So AAA authorization, and with this, the authorization side, we typically will go and say commands, right? But what we're going to do is authorization exec. Okay, we don't have to do it command level. We're going to say this is the default authorization exec group. Okay, we're going to say it's local as well, and then we're going to go out to group TAC. Okay, so that takes care of that from an authorization standpoint. Now for accounting, we can also do our accounting for commands or different accounting level syntax, but I'm going to keep this very simple for now. Okay, so we're going to do AAA accounting, and we're going to say this is going to be identity. Now let's do accounting commands. Okay, I'm going to say 15 default start stop group TAC. So that's basically saying we're getting the privilege 15 user commands, because that's all we're setting up. We're not doing different roles or different local restrictions on roles. We're going to leave all that up to ISE. But for anybody doing privilege 15, we're logging those commands, and we're going to send them to the ISE node. That's what that's about. So now we've got 3 AAA commands. We've got a TACACS server defined. We've got a group defined called TAC with the TACACS server. And if I had more servers, I might set up load balancing, things like that. But very, very simple setup so far. Okay. So at a certain point, we'll want to test this, right? Well, we want to enforce SSH. So the other part of this is we never really set up SSH, I don't think. So we're going to start off by just doing it right. Crypto key, generate, RSA. We already have a host name. We already have a domain name. switch1.wifi-training.local, right? Generate RSA, and let's do 2048. Okay. And then now we're going to go under line VTY 049, create up to 50 sessions. Again, it's not a controller, but there's a lot we can do with our web interfaces nowadays. And if we use web interface or we use some type of web redirection or something, we want those sessions to be available, which is why it's the best practice just to do 0 to 49. And we're going to do transport input SSH, which restricts us now to only be able to do SSH on these VTY lines. Okay, we've got a local user database that we can authenticate with, but we also have now the external ISE group. Now we haven't created any usernames or passwords yet to test with, but there is a pretty cool command that you guys can use to see some action. So we can do test AAA group TAC, and then you put in a username. We'll try admin and Cisco 123 new. And what this is going to do is it's going to go out to that server and try to authenticate a user with the name admin and Cisco 123 new. So if we go to just check out our context visibility and we look, let's just say, at our operations and live logs, we should be seeing some records. We are not yet. So let's do this. Let's take a look. Let's do a ping and make sure we have connectivity. So our data center service is this 10.1.101. So we're going to do show IP route real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the TACACS source address on the VLAN 100. So we're going to do IP TACACS source VLAN 100. That way it just keeps it very simple. Doesn't have to be that way if your routing is set up, but we have a very simple topology in the lab, and I'm very big fans of the KISS model, right? Keep it simple, stupid. So we just put the TACACS source traffic on VLAN 100, and ISE lives on that VLAN, right? So it's very simple to do that, and it should work for us right away. Now, what I'm looking for basically is to be able to use our test AAA group TAC, and that basically is going to test the servers in the group if there was a list. And again, user rejected doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing because I don't have any users, right? I haven't defined anything yet. So let's see, are we looking at live logs here? And then let's look at nothing there, right? Okay, so, and you want to make sure your service is running and all that kind of fun stuff, just to be sure on that. Okay, so now let's do a show run AAA again, and we've got our AAA authentication log on default local group. Let's do a ping, just make sure we're good on that side. 100.21 source VLAN 100. We're successful. All right, so now let's try coming from the server. Let's do so we're going to log in here as, let's just say, Chris, and I'm going to put in welcome one. Now it's going to search for Chris, right? And it should be getting, and it's going to search the local database first, and then it's going to try to authenticate with ISE. So we should be seeing some type of response from this guy. And we're doing TACACS, right? All right. So let's take a look here. That's denied, but that's fine. And let's do our okay, so we're sourcing from VLAN 100. we do have a key for this TACACS server. It's called TAC1, and the group name is TAC. Ah, look, it actually put TACACS as the group. That's not what we wanted. This is why it's actually sometimes better, guys, to use something different than TAC or TACACS, because it just assumed we were going to use the group TACACS, right? And we're not. So we're going to do login, default, local. So we're doing the same command we did earlier, but we're going to do group TAC. And then AAA, let's just copy this again. And then we'll copy this again. Okay, now again, user rejected isn't necessarily a bad thing, because we don't have a user defined yet in our ISE deployment, but we should still see the attempt, right? And that is kind of weird that we're not seeing at least the attempt. And again, it should not be doing radius, it should just be doing TACACS, all right, port 49. All right, let's go ahead and continue. I'm gonna assume that that is okay, even though it's behaving like that for just a moment. We do have this added as a default device, like I said. So one other thing I'm gonna check, it's still putting the group as TACACS plus. Now, here's the thing, that actually won't have a problem. So let's do this. I'm gonna create a new group, not call it TACACS. Okay, so we're gonna call this ISE T. Okay, and we'll do server name TAC1. Okay, exit. So now we're going to do these commands again and make sure they get back to what we're doing. Because if you look, it says use the server group name, but we're putting in TAC and it's writing TACACS for us. That's not what we want. Now, this technically should still work because it says use the list of all TACACS hosts, right? But it's not doing exactly what we want, which is why I am changing it so that it does do exactly what we want. So, because there's something messed up. There's something fishy here. Something fishy. And again, what we're doing there is just we're saying use the local group and then use ISE T. All right, so let's do our line VTY 049, and we're going to do login authentication. And we're going to use the default authentication list. Okay, so actually I think that's probably what we were missing, but let's check it out real quick. So that command probably didn't exist yet. Let's check it out. So what we're going to do is minimize this guy. Let's go over here to PuTTY and let's use SSH, and we're going to go to there we go. All right, I knew something was weird there for a second. Okay, so basically, again, that doesn't exist, but we should still get this, right? And it should say invalid, okay? Because what it's doing is it's saying, hey, this person who tried to authenticate is not in the applicable identity store. Now, an identity store, guys, is a repository of users, okay? So whenever we hit our AAA policies on ISE, we basically have to search from a list of trusted identity sources, and that could be AD domains, that could be LDAP directories, that could be other radius servers, it could be SAML options. Nowadays it could be any number of things, right? Because we're doing all different types of authentication integrations, and ISE is basically the heart of that. He's your one source of truth on the enterprise, for the enterprise, right? So let's do this. Let's create a local user real quick. And this way we've got somebody to authenticate with if we need to. So I'm going to create a new username, Chris, and we're going to say welcome one, welcome one. Okay, and user groups, I'm going to make him an employee, and we're going to submit. Okay, now the other thing we're going to do is we want to make sure that I have, but I don't have any group types for, or I haven't done anything really with the TACACS policy. It's just a default policy right now. So what we're going to do is go under administration, and let's come over here to our, actually let's go to work centers, and let's go to, and this new menu is fun, huh? Device administration. Okay. And we'll just start at the top. So overview, right? So what we need is, we need deployment enable for TACACS, we've done that. We need devices that have TACACS, we've done that. Device administrators, right? We've created. And now the next thing is a policy set. Okay, now there's a default test policy set here, and you can see it's been hit because it's the default. It would catch everything, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a permit, and we're going to say if, now there's a bunch of different ways we could do this, but if this was a real deployment, do we want all employees to be able to log into TACACS, or do we want device administrators to log into TACACS? Well, we probably want device administrators, right? So, but one thing I can do just for now, right, is say if the internals user's first name is equal to Chris, then give them access, right? Permit all commands. And look at that. There is a we'll just do it very simple. Permit any command that is not listed below. There is no commands listed below. So that's as easy as we can make it, right? Permit all. Okay. And we're going to do a default shell profile. Actually, we don't even need that. We shouldn't need that. We do need that. We'll just do the default. It's fine. Again, didn't want to get into the TACACS side of the house right now, just to give you an example. So you've got a local username, a local password. Let's see what happens as we manage our device here. So what we're going to do now is exit, exit, and we're going to test AAA group ISE. And you notice it didn't like that TAC name. It wanted something unique, right? So we're going to test the AAA group ISE. And you could test a specific server, but there's only the one server. We know that. So we're going to do username Chris, and welcome one is our username. Is that our username? I think that's our username. Okay, user was rejected, but I want to see why, because did I use the right password? I may have not. I think I made my password Cisco123. That's what it is. So let's do this again, and we'll do, I just created it and I couldn't remember the password. That's hilarious. Okay, let's see now what we're saying. So let's go, it's gotta be the username. So let's check it out. And just gonna make it welcome one. Password never expires. Oh, it says it is welcome one, basically. Okay. So we'll make it Cisco 123. There's probably some password rules it's going to hit me with. Nah, I was able to do it. So Chris and Cisco 123, and that should be successful now. We can look at our live logs, which will tell us what we're seeing. So let's come at it from this side. Let's do our test from here, right? So welcome one. Oh, I just changed it to Cisco 123. So now I'm in. So TACACS worked there, right? We did the minimum we needed to do to get this freaking thing rolling. So you can see I failed the authentication the first time, but I was successful the second time. Why? Because I put in the wrong freaking password. It's as simple as that. But we can see now that we are using the groups. Well, here's the other thing. Why is this going back to that? That is crazy. It's working, right? And as I said before, it should work because it is specifying all TACACS nodes, right? So it should work. But it's just crazy that it's, oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong switch. Duh. I'm like, what the hell? Okay, give me 1 sec. I had another switch actually set up for this. That's funny. Hopefully I'm on the right switch that I'm configuring over here. Hopefully I am. Did I configure the right switch? Let's see about this. Okay, we know that this works going into this device already because we've just verified it, right? That on AAA, you're seeing here, it's hitting the default network device, and this is actually, it was me logging into the other switch there. All right, so into this switch, okay, so actually had connected to the wrong switch. What do you know? All right, so log on default local group ISE, and ISE is defined with TAC1. Okay, TAC1 is defined as 10.1. Aha, put in the wrong IP address for TAC1. So that was our problem. That will do it every time. All right. Looky there. Authenticated successfully was the wrong IP address. Come on, Chris. You're better than that. There's your authentication with this new device at 10.1.101. So we have, this is about as simple of TACACS integration as we can get. We just did a permit any policy just to get us up and rolling. We got TACACS configured on the switch with a group, and I configured it as a group because it's always easier to add nodes if things are logically configured as a group. Same thing with VLAN groups, for example, right? Even if I've got the one VLAN for now, if I go ahead and put it in a group, then later on, if I need to expand, I just add to the group. Very, very easy, right? No need to reset policies or anything like that. All right, well, I'm not gonna do the radius side in this video because we're already doing this, so